first speaker has a familiar name and face by now. He's been very engaged in a lot of these different sessions. But it's Stephen Austin, who is a Field Operations Section Director with TxDOT. He's going to be presenting to us on managing bridge preservation and maintenance actions, observations from implementation of the maintenance module. So let's welcome Stephen.
Thanks, Graham. As I get started, I'll just give a little overview on our inventory of bridges in Texas. We've got 56,000 bridges in Texas, roughly, plus or minus, depending on how you look at them or which ones you include in your numbers. This equates to about 2,200 bridge inspections per month. So that's more bridges than several states have in their complete inventory. So it's a lot of times we'll use the expression that the bridge inspection program is a big machine, and there's a lot of parts to the machine, a lot of inspectors, consultant inspectors that are involved, district bridge staff, and quality assurance folks at Bridge Division headquarters, essentially. As part of the bridge inspections, we have our bridge inspectors make recommendations for repair or maintenance. So one example of this might be erosion, undermining, or scour of an abutment. And the recommendations are made are documented on a form. Prior to 2021, these recommendations were made on a worksheet that looked like this. The top part of this worksheet has a description of the bridge, the NBI number, and then it's got a brief description of the component that has a deficiency and a recommendation made by the inspector. That's the front page on the left, and then on the right is the form that's supposed to be used by district staff, maintenance forces, or district bridge staff to document what action was taken and to close out the recommendation. So in the normal workflow, before 2021, the district bridge office would send the recommendation to the area office. The area office would receive maybe boxes of these recommendations or spreadsheets with very limited information. One example of a spreadsheet, you can't see it, but it's in the background on the lower right. So it'd be a listing of every one of these deficiencies and corresponding recommendations. Area office might perform the repairs, or they might put the boxes off in a corner until they're asked for by the district bridge office. If a repair is complete, the documentation would be on the back side, on the second page of that follow-up action worksheet. District bridge office would upload the photo maybe of completed work and this completed form into our bridge inspection management system, and then we're all done. And all along the way, because there are a lot of recommendations, district bridge offices would track the progress of completed work in a district-specific worksheet that has all of these, all of the recommendations made. So kind of a tedious effort, but one recommendation seems doable, but unfortunately they don't come one at a time. You might have joint issues, load posting sign issues, debris accumulation, and by the end of the day, you've got everything buried up on, and you're only focused on the more critical issues. The picture in the middle is literally a footing that's completely undermined and supported by the widened exterior columns, the exterior columns that were added through a widening. So, this would now get likely heightened attention, and everything else might get pushed aside. So again, this was a process prior to 2021, and this process was effective in documenting the deficiencies. We did a good job of saying we've got an issue that needs to be addressed, and immediate safety concerns were addressed. I've said that before, that we've been very good about addressing those problems that require immediate action. But this process really lacked repair follow-through for those routine recommendations and repair documentation of completed work. And a lot of times, any documentation that was made for repair details or photos of completed work would not be added to the bridge inspection folders, inspection files. So this led to inconsistent tracking of the status of a recommendation for repairs or maintenance items. Again, many recommendations, routine recommendations would go unaddressed for numerous inspection cycles as we're trying to put out all of the fires and couldn't programmatically or group projects or organize the recommendations in a logical way. Really lacked the resources there. And it was really impossible to perform any monthly reporting on the condition of our bridges in terms of what actions needed to be made or what actions were being recommended. It was impossible to prepare statistics of progress, to summarize where issues are being resolved and where we need to focus more attention to. So TxDOT implemented Bentley's Assetwise system. At the time it was called InspectTech in 2017, and we began implementation of a feature within the Assetwise system called the maintenance module in 2020. We came up with a step-by-step plan with milestones, including a pilot process for a few districts to really, let's test this out. Let's see what this process would look like. We had statewide implementation by the end of 2021, and we used something called a bulk importing, where we pretty much brought all of these worksheets that were maybe used to track progress, to track the districts were using, to import all of these recommendations that were not already in the system. So kind of in a general sense, this is a whole lot harder to see than I thought it would be. But essentially, this workflow shows that at the very top, we've got bridge inspector creating an item. Then the first box from the top is the district bridge review. So in this box, the district bridge office would review the recommendations and make either concur with the recommendations or maybe dismiss the recommendation if it's not a significant enough issue. And then there were a number of other, and then from there, it goes to either contracted forces or any other method of us performing these repairs. And then at the final end of this workflow, at the very bottom, all of these recommendations would conclude with the district bridge closing out the recommendation. So a little bit of detail on that step one, where the inspector enters the defect and the recommendation in the system, like that form that I showed that we would use before 2021. An inspector would would describe the defect using a form within the maintenance module. Some of the details of each recommendation would be description of the issue and recommendation, and we standardized some of the language in there. So depending on the bridge component that was selected, is it the deck, the superstructure, or substructure, then there would be some specific repair categories. So this allowed down the road for us to group recommendations. Okay, I want to address all of the bearing issues, or I want to address all of the deck issues at once. I want to create a project. So we figured that would be very helpful in terms of allowing us to program work and to plan work. Then one other item that was required by, or that is required by our inspectors, is to take at least one picture to document the issue. After the inspector section is completed, it go, like I said, to the district bridge review office. Each of these recommendations would fall under one of four levels of severity. Level one would be the more critical items that require action or are recommended for action within 30 days. Level two, urgent recommendation, would be an item that is being recommended for repair within 6 months. Level three are routine items that are being recommended to be addressed within the next 24 months. And then level four is a more recent level that we defined as something that doesn't require immediate action, but is a way for an inspector to document a deficiency. And so if there's no structural concern or safety concern associated with it, but it's maybe a minor spall, that might be a level 4 recommendation. So As we were importing our maintenance items from spreadsheets and getting all of our states up to speed on the implementation of the maintenance module, this kind of shows the number of follow-up actions that have been created since we implemented it. So we're looking at about 80,000 follow-up action recommendations. Before we implemented this, we really couldn't have a sense of the magnitude of it without, like I said, this tedious spreadsheet grouping 25 districts together and kind of merging everything. It's just a really labor-intensive process to do that. Here, with a few clicks of the button, we can report we've had 80,000 follow-up actions created. So moving on to step 2, the district bridge review. Like I said, the district bridge office would review the recommendation and would work with other folks within the district. This would be a district area office, the maintenance office that's responsible for maybe taking the action if the work can be performed in-house, district maintenance engineer, the director of transportation planning and design. And so all these folks should theoretically, they would get involved in deciding, okay, this is a good action to be to perform in-house, or this is a good action to maybe plan a project, a system-wide project, or a district-wide project, or this is a good bridge to maybe start thinking about replacement based on all of the recommendations that are being made. So work that couldn't be performed in-house or is scheduled for contracts would be documented within the maintenance module. So we'd be able to include some details about that. So for work that's performed, that's kind of moving on to step 3, performing the work. The work would be completed in the field and documented in the follow-up action worksheet form. At least one picture would be taken, and the appropriate district person would be documenting that the work was done. The follow-up action after all of the work was done and we've got a photo, we've uploaded the photo, it would move on to district bridge closeout. So this is step 4, and at this step, what we've got is the district bridge office reviewing the documentation that was uploaded. The photo of the repair generally is in the same position that the photo of the deficiency was, so you can make, okay, this was the before and after, we're closing it out. And the nice thing about this is that all of that documentation is now within our bridge inspection management system. So I mentioned we had a piloting process as we implemented this. So we incorporated some of the feedback that we had from our districts, from our pilot districts. And this is details for planned work to be performed. So is there a contract that's coming up? So that it wasn't, hey, this item is late. This was recommended to be performed in 6 months, but it's not completed for 9 months or not completed for a year. What's the story behind it? Well, you can run a query from the maintenance module to get more details and get these comment boxes in there so that you can tell a more complete story of what we're doing, maybe as a district or as a statewide, to address these issues. This really now turns into a single source for tracking all of our recommendations, whether it's on system or even off system. So once we pass on a recommendation for repair to a local government, we can document that as well here within the maintenance module. Some of the key things that really led to the success of the maintenance module is the group that we tasked with implementing it has really developed top-notch training with a detailed user guide with step-by-step instructions for everybody that's involved with it in the process, from the inspectors to the district bridge office to the maintenance forces that are addressing the issues and completing the entries that document the items closed out or the items resolved. We created more discipline-specific help guides, so it turns into one-page document for those folks, so that we don't have to page through 30 pages of the detailed help guide. And then we developed recorded training sessions and posted those on the TxDOT YouTube page for reference anytime. And of course, we've got staff turnover, so this process is really an ongoing process as we're training new folks into new positions and other folks move on. So by now, the entire state is on board with the program, and documentation has drastically improved. Follow-through has significantly improved. And with the implementation of the maintenance module, we're able to quantify the magnitude of work being recommended. We're able to prioritize actions and group similar work types so that we can have a programmatic way of addressing things rather than kind of just a shotgun based on what's on those worksheets. You might delay something and group it with all joint repairs next year rather than do 5 now and 5 later in the year and then 5 the following year. So part of, I think, the success of this was to our monthly reporting and district competition. We would track the follow-up actions that were addressed, the status of each district, and report on that monthly. Grand Bettis, the state bridge engineer, would send out a monthly email to our district leadership and include administration on those emails so that there was, hey, an opportunity for each district to see how they're doing compared to other districts. So this was, I think, a real big success. Here we've moved to more automated reporting. So the bottom picture shows the statewide progress, and we've developed dashboards in a software called Tableau, some analytics software that maybe some of you are familiar with. Tableau is a statewide dashboard system that we've added on some dashboards, some reporting tools to report on how we're doing. So this is another graph here. The old way on the left, where we listed progress, and this was again a very tedious, time-intensive process that would take no less than 2 days, 3 days for a person to compile all of the information from districts to now this more automated reporting. So a side benefit of this implementation, now that we're able to track progress and report on progress, we're seeing that more districts are moving to add some bridge repair capabilities. So whether it's upping their crews or shifting their focus from maintenance, non-bridge related maintenance to focusing a little bit on bridges now, a little bit more on bridges now. So some of the results are that we've seen. The backlog of unaddressed priority level 3 recommendations has made it difficult to catch up. We knew we had a lot of unresolved follow-up actions, follow-up recommendations, but now we're able to report on those, and it's been a challenge for some districts to show progress, especially as of course it's easy to address the low-hanging fruit, but it becomes increasingly more difficult to address those items that may require more money, more contracting, more labor, more resources. The numbers don't lie. It seems like we've got a lot of emphasis from administration and from district leadership that there's a tendency to try to get credit for things before something's completely done. So that's maybe led to a couple of opportunities for us to send some clarification on processes and what we mean by the different work stages. If it's completely closed out, it's not that you've got a project that you're planning, it's that the repair is complete and it's been documented completely. So with more attention on the bridge maintenance, there has been an increased focus on more programmatic maintenance, and really now we're seeing interest from districts to say, hey, we're getting caught up on a lot of these follow-up actions. What can we do now? How can we be more proactive? One district actually reached out just last week to say, hey, exactly this. What can I do to preserve our bridge decks? So we're excited to hear that, and I think that's all been a byproduct of the implementation of this maintenance module. There are a lot of folks that were involved in it, in this implementation. All the folks here, minus me, have really been an integral part of the implementation. This is the bridge inspection program, quality assurance group that really has led the trainings, the development, and Graham Bett is here. Let me. The division champion for sure has been important to have Graham behind it, but certainly the folks that have been implementing it, it's been a continual effort since we decided to implement the maintenance module. So, thank you.
Yeah, we have time for questions if anybody has any.
I was curious whether you were going to be implementing more, you were talking about the future, preservation. Are you going to be implementing those kind of recommendations in the future, or do you see that becoming something that you guys do?
So future recommendations
As far as preservation of decks, what you were talking about, the regional offices were coming to you with.
that might be a good suggestion. That may be something that we should consider. We have not. This has mostly been focused on addressing deficiencies that are identified by inspectors, but there may be a good opportunity to say, hey, we're gonna add a defect or to seal a bridge deck. We may do something like that. That's not a bad idea.
I guess a two-part. Curious if there yielded any good macro level data coming out of this to help you go to the money people, say, hey, look at this. This is how much we need now. You have real time. This is what we're spending right now, but we have this many more items to do that are either behind or whatever metrics you have. But curious if you've seen any, has this been translated into cost that you can go to get support for more money for bridge preservation? And I'm curious what kind of response you're seeing from the local governments on closing that loop. How has that interaction been?
So there are some districts that, another initiative that Graham's championed has been these 4-year bridge plans. So it's requiring districts to plan for the next 4 years. What's your plan? And we've seen from a couple of districts now that they've incorporated the maintenance module reporting into that to say, hey, this is how I'm going to be addressing these deficiencies, and this is my plan. I think that's probably the easiest way to implement it. There's at least been 3 districts that have used it for that. On a statewide level, I think you're probably right that we have an opportunity to maybe do a little bit more of that and take advantage of the information. As far as local governments, a lot of our workflow, unless they're critical findings or that action needs to be taken more immediately, we pass those off and we say, okay, that's not our responsibility, but we do track and follow up on critical findings to make sure that safety concern is addressed. So if it's a maintenance item, it wouldn't be something that we'd track, till it's a safety issue.
Yeah, one more.
Are the defects that are reported, are they tied to the codes used in the element level defects codes, so that when they're resolved, it would justify triggering an increase in condition state?
Right now, they're not tied to element level defects, no.
All right, quick.
Just wondering, I saw, Stephen, you had $80,000 deficiency, right, that needed to be addressed. How are they prioritized? I know it could be A, B, and C, but within A, you could have 20,000. How do you provide a guidelines to a district saying, hey, out of those 20,000 is there a method for you to prioritize specific deficiencies?
We don't prescribe those except for the severity of the priority level. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's thank Stephen.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.